Hello and welcome to the Careers in Sport and Exercise webinar. My name is Amory Batson and I am your host. Now, competition in sport isn't just on the field or the track or even on the pitch. There is a huge, diverse support industry behind the scenes, and the list of professionals is endless. We've got nutritionists, physiotherapists, administrators, match officials, and even physiotherapists. And here's the thing, Careers in Sport is an educational resource for people who want to work in the sports industry. Now, did you know that over 200,000 14 to 18-year-olds are studying for a qualification in the sports industry? And Careers in Sport promotes diverse opportunities behind the scenes. Now, I mentioned right at the beginning that this is a webinar in sport and exercise science, and I'm not alone. I'm thankfully joined today by some leading professionals in this field who are going to talk to me about their journey, what they've learned along the way, and give you some golden nuggets to take away for your own journey as well. So I'm delighted to say that I'm joined by Oliver Harrington, who is the lead academy sports scientist at Reading FC. How are you doing, Oliver?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Good, thank you. I'm very well. I'm also joined by Danny Holdcroft, who's head of performance at British Bobsleigh and Skelton. How's it going?
Good, thank you. Great.
Also like to welcome Dr. Amy Whitehead, a reader in sports psychology and coaching and program manager for sports coaching and sports. Hello, Amy.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
And last but certainly not means least, Dr. Adam Gledhill, who is the senior lecturer in sport and exercise psychology at Leeds Becket University. Welcome, Dr. Adam Gledhill.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for joining us all. Thank you. Lovely to see you as well. So let's get straight into it. The first topic I want to talk to you all about is your journey, because I'm sure you've had different experiences and it'd be great to share with people watching. So let's start with you, Amy. How did you get to where you are today, and why did you choose a career in sport and exercise science?
I think as a young girl, I was a huge kind of sport advocate, probably similar to everyone else, played every sport at school. And I think I had some key influencing people in my life, such as my brother was a professional rugby player, and my parents were big kind of advocates for sport, and I had some really good teachers. And they always kind of pushed me in the direction of sport. I was quite academic as well in secondary school, and that pushed me to kind of go and study A-levels. I picked kind of A-levels around sport, kind of physical activity. And I also picked a psychology A-level. So I think the love of sport, the love of psychology, I combined them at the age of 18, and I went to university to study sports psychology. And I guess from there it was study. So I went from undergrad, master's, PhD, HCPC registered sport and exercise psychologist, and obviously working in higher education. So I guess a combination of study, passion for sport, and gaining as much work experience as possible over the last 10 years has kind of got me to where I am today.
Danny, I'd like to ask you, as head of performance at British Bobsleigh and Skelton, that's a winter sport. What made you fall in love with that sport, and how did your journey start?
Yeah, we're not a winter sport nation, but I guess starting at the top with my journey, a little bit similar to what we've just heard, really, in that I grew up obsessed with sport. Football was my sport, and as a kid, all I wanted to do was play football, and that was my career choice. But like so many in the game, wasn't quite good enough to make it, and got spat out at the academy stage. For me, my route into where I'm at right now is kind of a bit of hard work and starting at the bottom as a fitness instructor and coaching at the grassroots game of football and engineering opportunities through people I met, and doing voluntary work and doing 5 or 6 jobs, and then lucky enough to mold it into my first full-time job in high performance sport with the LTA Lawn Tennis Association and their academy system. And then from there, in terms of skeleton and winter sport, lucky enough, the psychologist within British tennis at that time was Simon Timpson. Many of us might know he was the performance director of Skeleton. And we got chatting, and an opportunity came up in Bath, and that's kind of how I got into the sport. To be quite honest, I wasn't a winter sport fan as a kid. I didn't really watch the winter games, and I didn't really have a clue of what skeleton was when I took the job, other than that it was a winter sport. It was more about the opportunity to work as in performance sport that excited me.
It's because I was going to say to you, Danny, it's such a change, isn't it, to go from working in tennis as part of the LTA and then moving into a winter sport. How did you manage that transition?
The transition was great, really. I think for me, winter sport at that time, and particularly what we were trying to establish within Skeleton, sits good with my kind of mindset of kind of doing things differently and not just following traditional routes. And I think part of the reason in tennis at that time where I was getting a little bit frustrated and bored was they had a very systematic way of working, which was quite robotic. Same every day, 2 hours on court in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, and half an hour of physical work after the last session. And I guess winter sport, we were up against the odds, and we had to go about trying to do things differently. And that for me really excited. And actually, the transfer into that arena was quite easy and quite exciting.
Okay. Oliver, you work at Reading FC. You're the leading academy sports scientist. Let me guess, you fell in love with football at a young age?
Yeah, played football since I could walk, really. Dad got me into it from a very, very early age. Similar to what's been mentioned, I had a massive love for sport and all sports as well. I tried everything as a kid. I tried cricket, diving, trampolining, badminton, all sorts, and had a real love for sport. Took that onto my GCSEs, did sports studies, which was a big driver for me. And then at A-level, I also did sports studies and psychology. So my initial route when I did my degree was in sports psychology down at Bournemouth University. And initially, that's kind of the route I thought I was going to take. In my third year down at Bournemouth, had to do a placement year, and was lucky enough to secure one of those at Reading Football Club, working under a guy called Ed Franklin, who was my boss and mentor, really. But that was as a sports scientist. And I guess that's kind of where I fell in love with sports science slightly more. Went back to do my final year at university, was sort of struggling about what I was going to do. And then that's when the elite player performance plan was put in, meaning there was a whole host of jobs that were put in place. So each academy in England was put into a categorization system, and Reading were pushing for Cat 1 at the time, which meant that they had to, there was a certain amount of rules they had to follow in terms of employing staff. And I applied for the role and was lucky enough to get it. Worked with the sort of the younger kiddies, under 9s to under 16s, for 3 years, which taught me a lot. You're working with sort of 150 kids and 25 to 30 different coaches. So building relationships was massive. And then after that 3 years, I was lucky enough to get a promotion up to work with the under 23s, and I've been there for 5 years now. So that's kind of been my journey, and still loving it, still learning each day, really.
Brilliant, thank you. Adam, senior lecturer in sports and exercise psychology. That's quite a big topic. How did you get to that point of working at Leeds Becket University?
So again, quite similar to a lot of the other backgrounds that have been shared so far. I'm hugely interested in sport and active in sport as a young person all the way through. I had a slightly different, I guess, change tack. I originally wanted to go on into PE teaching and things like that, but I had a fairly extensive injury record when I was younger, which meant that I wouldn't have been able to do that as well as I would have liked to. So I was just really quite lucky that the university at the time allowed me to change onto sport and exercise science. So I've kind of ended up in the early stages almost falling into it a little bit by luck, as well as having the right support mechanisms in place. But from there, excuse me, master's qualification, PhD, and a lot of time and effort spent around getting the right types of placements, getting the right types of experiences, working with a range of different types of athletes across sports in terms of football and track and field athletics, rugby, cycling, those sorts of things, as well as working within different community sport type environments. And I think the breadth and depth of experiences are really quite an important part there, because it allows you to develop not only your soft skills and your hard skills. So, you know, from that point of view, that blend of experiences has served me quite well. And again, quite different in some ways, because I've progressed through from further education, where I used to teach a lot on BTEC programs and foundation degree programs, and contribute to A-level teaching, and then about 5 or 6 years ago moved into universities. So yeah, quite a storied history there.